everybody, Carolina Tony. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Today we are in Pooler, Georgia at the Mighty 8th Fighting Squadron Museum. Lots of World War II airplanes. This is a B-47 over my shoulder. This was actually the same type of plane that dropped an atom bomb on Mars Bluff, South Carolina that I did a video of back in March or May. Anyway, we're gonna have some fun today, so come along with me, but right after this station identification. Okay, we are at the Mighty 8th Museum, and it's all about World War II aviation. And there's a school group that's going through with their tour. I'm going to try to get ahead of them. Here is a flight jacket. It's called an A2 flight jacket. Here is called a Nissen hut. This is where the aviators would come to get their mission briefing.
For ourselves. Let's go home. That was close. This ain't another one. Untitled Chapter. Begin complete. Bombardier crew, let's get a damage report. Everybody check in. Yeah, okay. That place okay. So far, okay. We've been through 4 hours of deafening noise.
Artifacts from a battle. Gas mask. And there is a device that would be used to look at an airplane and spot where they want to drop a bomb at. German helmet. And this is the clothing that a pilot from the 8th World War. A real nice leather jacket and his cloth helmet with goggles and gas mask. This here is a CT3 pup. It's a lightweight Jeep. It's capable of being transported by air from the C-47 Skytrain. There are only 6 made it overseas, and this is one of only 7 known in existence. The B-17 Flying Fortress. In 1936, this was the largest fighting aircraft that the United States had in their flying arsenal. Just check that turret out up under the bottom there. Could you imagine being strapped in that thing with bullets flying all around you with no protection at all? Here's another machine gun stuck out the side. And it just isn't in there. There's one that comes out the tail as well, but apparently it's not installed right now. Another machine gun. And here's a look at the back side of the turret. It would be very cramped in there. Here's a film that was used to recruit people for the Air Force, starring Jimmy Stewart. Here are some of the engines that would fly this plane. A Rolls-Royce engine. This is a bomb sight that would be in the plane that the bombardier would look down at the targets below so they could pinpoint exactly where to drop the bombs. And here's an example of the bombs that have been dropped out of this plane. There's a story in here about a plane like this being shot down, and they parachuted out and used a bicycle to escape to safety, being taken in by a French family and stayed in a home kind of like this. Even a secret compartment behind the walls to hide aviators that have been shot down. Not all the times did the pilots manage to be rescued by the people in the countryside. Sometimes they had to go to POW camps. And here's an example of a POW camp. You know, we see in the TV show from back in the 70s and 80s, Hogan's Heroes, things that we think probably didn't exist, but indeed they did. It said Stalag Luft 3 Center Compound had a secret radio from the camp in the infirmary, disassembled into a sausage-shaped form and hidden in an already hollowed-out table leg, powered by a single light bulb, kind of like right there. And there's a soldier on the radio. Here are some pictures of the soldiers that was on the... Here is a reproduction of a homemade heater used in Stalag Luft 1 that they would make to put out a little heat, because it was really cold where they were at, and they didn't get a whole lot in the way of amenities, so they had to improvise on their own. This is kind of interesting. Gunner John Kyler, a B-17, was damaged by enemy flak and fighters. He bailed out of his plane, he was captured, and he spent the rest of the war at a war camp, actually 3 different prisons. But during his stay at the Stalag Luft 6, he received yarn and a crochet hook from the YMCA, and he taught himself to crochet, and he made him this vest. Here's a food package that would be sent to the Stalags from the American Red Cross, with various things, of course, the Germans would go through to make sure they couldn't get anything they could use, but just the bare necessities. That belonged to a Irving Baum. He volunteered to assist since he spoke both German and Yiddish, and he helped feed the children that were starving to death by putting a drop of glucose on their tongue And then when they turned their backs, 2 or 3 pieces on their bread. Where they were literally starving to death. This Nazi flag was taken after the liberation of Stalag 7A in Moonberg, Germany. Said for nearly 6,000 American POWs in Moonberg. The liberation came on the 29th of April, 1945. And it has a lot of signatures on there. This is a decoy missile called McDonnell ADM-20C Quail. And this was used in 1952 by the Strategic Air Command. And they would launch this decoy and it would produce a radar image similar to the B-52 Stratofortress. And they would use this to draw the attack away from the flying fortress. This is a B-52 vertical stabilizer, which is on the tail. It was taken from a B-52 in Tucson, Arizona. During World War II, a lot of the men that served on these airships would decorate the outside of the ships with different things. This here was known as the Eager Beaver, and you can see how many bombing missions it flew. And different types of photography equipment that was used during World War II. It's a projector. It's a silent movie projector. 16mm film. Hanging from this parachute, jumping out of a shot down plane with all these planes over the top of you, shooting at you. And this is the 8th Air Force, part of the Duke Spook Squadron. And these bombers didn't have heat in them, so they had to devise a way to keep the pilots and the crew warm at these leather pants lined with sheep wool and these really thick boots and leather gloves lined with sheep wool. There's a reserve parachute that would go on the front part of the aviator. Another leather jacket. An aviator's helmet. And this is from the 452nd Bomb Group. And their colorful jacket. And the 359th Bomb Group. Some of their things. There's so much in here that I'm sure that I'm going to skip over something because everything's got a story behind it. Clothing, personal articles that belong to some of the pilots and co-pilots and bombardiers that you could spend a month in here. Here's a fragment from the tale of Lieutenant Robert Powell's P-51 showing battle damage sustained while over a German airfield. Look at all those bullet holes. And sometimes these planes had to go really high. Here's an oxygen tank used by airmen when flying missions at really high altitudes. This is called a Type G3 anti-gravity suit. had these laces that were tightened around their lower extremities, that when performing some of these missions at such high altitudes, it would cause blood to pool in certain extremities, and therefore by these things tightened would keep the flow of blood in the body. Kind of similar today, when I fly long distances, my feet kind of swell up a little bit. Even in a pressurized cabin. These were not pressurized. These are displays from all the different bomb groups, which were lots of them. There's a seventh. This is called a K17 camera that would be mounted in the belly of a plane so they could take pictures kind of like this.
Lost. But in nearly 1,000 days of operations, the 8th had a proud and true boast. It was never once turned back by the enemy.
1,000 young women left their homes and families to serve as military pilots. Even though they classified them as civilian, the Women Air Force Service, WASP, carried out dangerous missions, flying military aircraft. There's some of the WASP. By the time the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December the 7th, 1941, more than 3,000 American women had learned to fly. And here's a lady pilot.
They were in awe of the way the Wasp flew that airplane so reliably without accident.
We're out on a summer's or winter's day and you saw this overhead. This could be bad news. This is part of the White Star, and it was located near the waist gunner's position. That right there would have been where the waist gunner was stationed at. And this fuselage section is all that remains of one tidal wave B-24 that crashed on August the 1st, 1943. And this was part of the 9th Air Force B-24. You can see bullet holes in it. This is called the Chapel of the Fallen Angels. It's dedicated in memory of the men that served with the 8th Squadron. Let's go inside. It's a beautiful church. The stained glass is really interesting. Depicts the planes, the American and Royal British Air Force. And there's an aviator looking to the heavens. If you're ever going to Florida and you're traveling on 95 and you go past Savannah, Georgia, this is where the museum is. right on the side of the road of Interstate 95. And so many people go by here and never know what a gem this place is and what they're missing. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our trip to the Mighty 8th Air Force Museum. Right here next to Interstate 95. So if you ever go into Florida or Maine, it's at the Pooler exit, right next to the Savannah exit. Please stop by. This is a treasure of a museum, remembering those men that fought, and women that fought and died for our freedom. And for now, y'all have a good day.